7 o'clock, folks. I am going to call the March 11th Committee of the Whole meeting to order. 7 p.m. There's nobody in attendance here, but online. Be aware that our meetings are recorded and available for public viewing on a public website. I want to acknowledge that we have the privilege to work, eat, live, play on the unceded First Nations land of the Hattusat Chinnikit territory. And if I could get someone to approve the agenda, please.
Move we approve the agenda.
I would like to second that.
Perfect, thank you so much. Any additions, deletions? Nothing like that. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
No opposed, so that is carried in the minutes.
And move we adopt the minutes of February 11, 2025, Committee of the Whole meeting.
And I second.
Perfect, thank you for that. Councillor Jack and Councillor Copeland, any errors, omissions, questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question on that one as well. All in favor?
Aye.
That's no opposed, so that is carried. We have no business arising at the moment. No delegations or correspondence, so we're right on to reports. We'll start out with the 2025 General Municipal Tax Rate Report. And this is information about setting the municipal tax rate for the village for 2025. CAO Nelson Smith, do you or any other staff have anything to add?
Thank you. So we have our finance manager, Claudia Frost, on the line, as well as our deputy finance officer, Alana Janice. As they prepared this report, council can ask them questions directly.
Okay. So what we're looking here, does anybody online have anything to add to the report that we haven't already seen?
Thank you, Mayor. No, nothing further to add from me.
Perfect. So what we are doing today is we're going to adopt the tax rate by law in May. So the following scenarios are in front of you for discussion. What say you, Council? Councillor Deck.
I believe that staff has recommended a scenario. And I believe it's number 3. Is that correct?
That is correct.
I also recommend that scenario.
Did you want to make that motion?
I'm ready. I move that we adopt scenario number 3 for the municipal tax.
And that's the one which incorporates a 5% tax revenue increase.
Yes.
Perfect.
Go ahead. Second. I'm just reading it.
If I have a second, then we can discuss.
Yes, I'll second it.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So that's on the table. Questions, comments? Councillor Deck.
Yeah, I'm looking at the numbers. 5% seems, whoa, that's a lot. But if you look at the total amount per month or over the year, it's really not a humongous amount. And it will keep us from falling behind, I believe. That's it. That's all I got.
Thank you for that. Councillor Copeland, did you have anything to ask or?
No, I agree with Councilor Deck's comments.
Okay. I was going to go for scenario number 2, and the only reason why is because of our surpluses. I know that is something that we always deal with, and I understand how that happens in a municipality because I've been here for quite some time. I was thinking that, the difference of $3,800, especially considering the next report we have, which is the 2025 operating budget, wasn't gonna be a big deal to us, but it may be a big deal to a taxpayer. Though I would, I don't think it's that much of a difference on on our constituents. I do know that we had a lot of discussion about the utility rates and what we were going to do with that. And so I think we've given some leeway there. Maybe this kind of balances that out, that we've left some leeway on the utilities and then we go with a 5% for the actual taxes themselves. I just know that everyone is struggling these days, everyone. And that includes this municipality with what's going on with the tariff wars, with what's going on with increased dollars for all of the products that we get, all the services we buy, all of the gas we get. So that was going to be my suggestion, but I don't think it's that much of a difference to make that big of an impact to our constituents or taxpayers.
Yeah,
Councillor Duck.
if I may, it is an increase for sure, and as old age pensioners, well, but that's money, that's big money sometimes. But the way I look at it, every household in Zeballos has increased in value. And not by just a little bit either, you know, so it may seem that we're asking a little much from them, but in the long haul, it's a win-win situation in my mind.
Yeah, I think in the report it said the average is 9% increase in assessed value this year. So that does make sense.
Yeah.
All right, folks, I think that is, thank you so much to staff for breaking this out this way and giving us multiple scenarios. Really appreciate that. I think it's good to see what the impact not only is to us, but also for the public to see that these are the kinds of things we're discussing and where we could possibly go if we really wanted to increase any services, if we wanted to account for any of the increases. I think this is a wait and see kind of year because of everything that's going on globally. Although it doesn't seem like it affects us here in Zeballos, it does.
Yeah.
Gas, everything. So I would support the other two councillors. Councillor Copeland.
Thanks. I just want to think about the tariff issue and the effect on logging, and therefore the effect on the local economy. Should we discuss that maybe as to the 3.5 and the 5%?
To my knowledge, the economy of the village, I don't know will change that much except for stays in community possibly if people are in camp. I think the last time I looked, there's 2 loggers left in community.
Oh, okay.
That's really,
Yeah.
so we're talking about a very small portion of our population. It is, I mean, it's gonna have, I don't know what the implications are. Nobody does at this point. We're gonna see, and then there's also this bringing the tariffs on and then rolling them back and then bringing the tariffs on and rolling them back. So
Yeah.
I think if we just kind of stay at this in between 2 or 3, either one is fine with me. I think the difference for the homeowner is $1 and like 76 cents, like $1.10. So it's not massive. So
Okay, thanks.
per month is what I meant for that dollar and cents.
And
Councillor Duck.
to follow up to the staff, thank you, Alana, for doing such a wonderful job. And I assume our Mickey Mouse hats are on the way. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duck. All right, so the question that's on the floor then is the motion that we adopt tax rate scenario number 3, which incorporates a 5% tax revenue increase for 2025. I'm going to call the question on that if there's no more comments or questions. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That's carried. All right, now we are on to the 2025 operating budget through to staff, whoever that may be, through the CAO and to whoever that may be. Was there anything to add or explain in that isn't already in the report?
Nothing from myself, again, the finance manager Frost and the deputy Janice are the writers of the report and can, answer any questions council may have.
Perfect. I don't see any hands flailing online, so, what we have in front of us is to review the operating budget, provide direction, and then, allocation of our 2025 surplus. Is that an allocation of the 2025 surplus or the 2024 surplus?
Yeah.
Through to Ms. Frost or Janice?
Thank you, Mayor Colborne. So that is for the predicted 2025 surplus. And that's the number that shows at the bottom of page 19, that $331,000. So that's what we're predicting for a surplus for 2025. So at this point, we're just going to, council will decide how that is allocated, whether it be towards specific reserves or keeping it as surplus or a combination of the two. Thank you.
Thank you. So, questions or comments from council? We've been through this, the February 11th meeting, we went through this. They did do the 5%, so what we just agreed on in that last motion was that 5% tax revenue increase. So that was only $11,000 and change over what 2024's was. So let's go through these on this page 13 of 27 will probably be the easiest. As there is 180,000 to the reserve funds, and is that where we want to put them? So 5,000 for the cenotaph, 5,000 for the cemetery improvement, the public works equipment, the wastewater, the water treatment, the foreshore, and the parks. Are we all good with 5,000 for the cenotaph project?
I think so. We can change that as time goes on. Ask you, but I think that's a good start. Don't you, Brian?
I think it's a good start. Thinking about maybe the Legion could come up with a few bucks too.
So did I. Yeah.
So there are grants available, but as a placeholder, I think that's a good thing to put that kind of at least on the radar for this year, so that we are, or not this year, but at least have a reserve for it in case matching funds is needed. So say we get $10,000 and they needed matching funds of 5, that's $15,000 for the cenotaph, but we have to have that. I'm in agreement with that. 5,000 for the cemetery improvement. In agreement with that.
I'm good.
Okay, public works equipment, 20, for seeing what we've got coming. Seeing what we've got coming
Yeah.
and what we've done. So the dump truck and the backhoe and all of those kinds of things. I think that's probably good to throw that in there, the 20,000.
Yep.
Are we good with that?
Sure.
Okay, Councillor Duck.
Yeah, no more though, because I just noticed someone from Public Works pulling up with a brand new diesel truck, so.
Oh my goodness, let's start that around town. Maybe he's just been promoted or something.
I don't know. I don't want to be the one to start it, but I know I'll hear it from.
The rumor that used to go around town was every time there was a new mayor, they got a new vehicle. I have upheld that. I'm glad things have changed personally,
Yeah.
if that is the case for our public works. However, not the time or the place, Councillor Duck. So, public works, 20,000
Okay.
in the statutory. Okay. Wastewater collection and treatment, there's 30,000 to go in there in the statutory reserve. This also, there's the remaining amount into the surplus for contingency, the actual leftover surplus is 151. If you want to up any of these or down any of these numbers, let us know. That's what this conversation is about.
Yeah.
Okay. So wastewater collection and treatment. I think that's low. Councillor Deck,
Through the mayor to,
please. CAO Nelson.
CAO Nelson Smith. Comments of all. Is that enough for wastewater, in your opinion?
Through to the CAO.
Thank you, through the mayor. Given what we're looking at in the future, we may need to have some matching costs as Mayor Colborn just spoke about for grant funding. As I know that one of the priorities moving forward is to get this east side of the river connected to the sewer.
Yeah.
And one of our previous meetings, we were also given direction to look at the feasibility of increasing the volume of the Keno Street station. So if that is feasible through that study, that will be another area that we would require some seed funding.
Yeah. And if I may,
Please go
a
ahead.
question to Public Works.
Through CAO too.
Through, oh yeah, didn't we go through you? Oh, so sorry. And you feel more money could be used there as well?
Yeah, I feel like it's a bit of a tough one, given how much like a one pump cost or if you had major water line break and stuff like that, but
Yeah,
it's a bit of a tough one. to
because
determine.
they're not for free. No.
Not at all, no.
You know, a single flight pump are typically $25,000 to $30,000 and
Yeah.
probably up from that now.
If I may, then you pick a number
Well, I was actually gonna ask a question of staff on,
or,
yeah,
okay, sorry.
of finance staff on that. So is there any, and I've asked this every single year and I always get the same answer, and I know that it's different for every municipality. But seeing kind of what's arising, what's coming in the future here, we are talking about wastewater treatment. In addition to that, we are going to be talking about drinking water, water treatment and distribution is always a possibility here. No matter how bad we fight against that. Is there a percentage or like a recommended number for best practices of how much money to keep in your reserves when you've got these big projects going on? So I know that's a really hard question to ask, but if I can get staff, some of the finance staff to maybe talk about that. When we've got these two kind of looming projects on the horizon, and we know that we don't even really know what all in all the said costs are going to be, but we know that they're multi-million dollar project. Is there a threshold of what we should be having or shooting for having in our reserves? I don't know if either of you can answer that, but if you maybe want to talk it through.
Thank you, Mayor. So I don't think there's any set numbers to put in there. It's just what council feels comfortable with. The other issue here is this is a projected surplus. This doesn't mean that this is the surplus you're going to get. Some things happen and you might not have any surplus to work with. And that could be the reality. One never knows what's going to happen within the year. So that being said, it's just a good practice, though, as we move forward to put money aside, which is what you've created these reserves for. Some are statutory, some are not. And
if I can interrupt you for 1 second, statutory reserves are ones that are dedicated just for one project or line item or category, correct? You can't use those for anything else. They're statutory to those line items, to those projects, to those categories.
Correct. So if you're putting money to a statutory reserve for wastewater, then that's what it needs to be used for. You can, let's say, there's some instances where you maybe create a statutory reserve, you put money aside, and all of a sudden, you know, you don't have that building anymore. You were putting money aside to then you are able through the council to move it. But it normally would go to another statutory reserve. So yeah, you are dedicating it to that particular item, whether it's water, sewer, public works equipment. That's what it's for. So these are just as we're moving forward. Your statutory reserves, some bylaws often say every year we're going to put $25,000 into the public works equipment. You know, that might be automatically coming out. Yours are fairly open-ended. There's no actual amounts. So it's really what council feels is best. As for most of these multi-million-dollar projects, as you said, that you're gonna, I would believe you're gonna end up having to look for grants, but as CAO Nelson Smith said, often they want a certain amount of money in the coffers to help with that grant. Does that help explain it for you?
It does. I ask it every year and I know there's no best practice of what should, but if there's, I almost consider these like contingency, almost like reserves. That's somehow how I look, sometimes how I look at it. And so I was just wondering if there was an answer to that. So I do understand what you're saying. There is no best practice. There is no percentage that should be included in that. It's what we decide. It's at our discretion. However, I always like to kind of think that we're beefing them enough. I like to hope that we're beefing them up enough. Sorry, Councillor Beck, you have your hand up?
Yes, I did. Thank you, Mayor. Looking at the list here, in my humble opinion, wastewater and water treatment are the two big items on this list. Or they possibly could
Could be,
be
yeah.
by far the biggest. I reckon we should add another 20 grand to each of them. And be happy with that and get all the grant money we can to keep ourselves in good stead.
We have in there right now. So wastewater collection and treatment, it's at, wastewater, where am I? It's at 20 and we're gonna put another 30 into it. Or 50, you said?
Yeah,
You wanted to put 50 in it?
up to 50,
To 50.
please. And the same with water treatment.
So up both of those by 20,000.
I think so, yeah.
That leaves us only with $100,000 as a surplus for any contingencies, for an operational contingency. Although our operating surplus is, do we have an operations reserve? We don't have an operations reserve. The operations surplus though is like $1 million.
Yeah, so with 100, should be in good enough shape, I would think.
Does that affect any of our, through to staff then, does that affect any of our borrowing power?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not sure what you're asking. So
I'm
about your
wondering if a meeting, so maintaining the so on page number 13, we're just going through the points bullets. So there's allocating 180,000 to the village reserves funds, and that maintains the remaining amount of 151,500.94 as a surplus for operational contingency.
Right, but if you're borrowing, they don't look at necessarily your surplus. They are more concerned with the dollars coming in versus the dollars going out, and it doesn't always reflect that and how much liability you already have. So if you have other loans or other issues, that's what the borrowing is going to look at, not necessarily your surplus. And with your surplus, I'd have to, I'm sorry, because I only have one screen, I can't look at both at the same time, but some of that, is that just your surplus or is that the total? Alana might be able to answer that because I don't have it right up in front of me.
To Mrs. Jennings.
Thank you, Mayor. Are you referring to the operating surplus that is shown on page 20?
The 2025 reserve status.
Yes, so that is the current status without the what could be an additional surplus amount that you are currently talking about. So that $111,000, which is what that surplus would be if you were to increase both the wastewater and water treatment reserves to 50,000. Then that additional $11,000 would eventually end up in that operating surplus. Hopefully, cross your fingers.
What is the,
If all goes well throughout the year.
what is the operating, sorry, Mayor, what is the operating surplus stated on that now? Alana?
It's currently 981,000.
And that's just operating
Just under.
surplus?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, that's a good amount, but once again, when you're running into those situations where you're having large projects looming, then that could dig into that because that's where it's going to come from.
I was just thinking that probably that operating surplus with only putting $100,000 in there or $111,000 in there, like I was just trying to do the math between how to move it from here into the wastewater and the water treatment and still leave our operating budget as a nice healthy number over here. So that's it. Does that make sense to everybody?
That's to me.
Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna add $20,000 to the wastewater and to the water treatment. Those are really big projects. They're coming up, they're looming. So is that okay with everyone to add 20,000 to each of those? So they would be 50 and 50?
Do your motion.
Promotion. Nope. I'm gonna do that at the end with the recommendation after we're done discussing, if that works okay for the table.
Sure.
Because we're just kind of talking through here and then we can ratify it by moving the recommendation as adjusted. Perfect. So I'm gonna move that to you. And then. Okay, so that puts our wastewater and our water treatment in a very good place. $40,000 for foreshore. It's another massive project, but is everybody okay with that? Okay, and we're still waiting, CEO Nelson Smith, we're still waiting on. The feasibility is done. The next step on that foreshore project is.
No, feasibility has not been done. No, we were going to wait for feedback from the Parks Committee.
Perfect. Thank you so much for giving me the where's that State of the Union. Okay. And then 50 for Parks and Landscape. Do we have? I know that there was a couple of projects for landscaping and then we've got the Parks Department, so we should leave them. Parks Committee. So we should leave them with something in there to play with. Are we okay with both the foreshore staying as it is and the park staying as it is?
I think that's
Comfortable with
reasonable.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
So then that leaves us 115,094 in that will be transferred to the operating budget. So we'll have over $1 million in that operating surplus at the end by the time we move all this in. Copy?
Overjoyed.
Okay. I am curious I had one other question. Is there any other questions for council in this report?
Not for me. No.
I had one other question. At the bottom of page 13, where it says expense adjustments under governance, potential council stipend increase. Are we sure we want to do that this year, or is that going to be a next year? I'm just thinking that that's probably a push out through the CAO. Did we make a motion that was to be done this year?
Thank you. No, there was somebody made just a recommendation. So, we're bringing it forward as a possibility.
Okay.
Absolutely council's discretion whether or not we We do that work.
I would be, I think it was my suggestion, and I think that I would be happy on doing that at the end of 2025, so it probably wouldn't affect this budget, but we'll leave it as is just because we've got that cushion in case we happen to get all of our ducks in a row, but I think because we're going to leave that for the next council, that it doesn't have to be done until next year anyway, so Councillor Deck, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you. For once in a blue moon, I'm with you.
Thank you for that. Yeah, it's usually something we try to leave the next council with, so I'm okay with not doing that work until the end of the year. And then it probably won't affect this year's budget, but we'll leave something in there just in case. It can roll over, correct?
Yep.
Yes, okay. All right. So the recommendation would be that $220,000 be transferred to reserves. Make sure my math's right. If it's not right, the 220,000 be transferred to the reserves as follows: 5,000 for the cenotaph project, 500 for cemetery improvement, 20,000 for public works equipment, 50,000 for wastewater collection and treatment, 50,000 for water treatment and distribution, 40,000 for foreshore improvement, and 50,000 for parks and landscape, and that the remaining amount of the 2025 budgeted surplus be transferred to our operational surplus.
I second that.
Could you just restate the cemetery improvement number?
5,000.
Thank you.
So that's been moved and seconded. Any more discussion on it? Being none, I'm going to call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That is carried. All right. The next report that we have in front of us is the capital and major purchases budget. Through to the CAO or other staff who have anything to add.
Nothing further from us.
Okay. So this is our capital and major purchases. And we try to get to this as early as we can every year. All the invoices are in from 2024, I believe now, and it says in here, so the outstanding project figures are in the graph that's in front of you. If there's any changes that go into the further version, which will be available at the next regular meeting, let staff know. So, conversation and questions from council. This is your very last graph. It'll be the capital requests and major purchases one. That was the very final one in your report. Yeah, that bottom one right there. And then for Councillor Jack, is the one. The very final one in your report.
Yeah.
And I know we've been through this multiple times. This is our just last kick at the can before they finalize this next meeting, essentially. Correct?
But I understand from that. I can see the plan, right?
Oh, at the bottom.
Oh, here, because you.
Yeah, okay. So through to council, is this where we are going? What's happening? Are we happy with this final iteration, or is there any changes that we want to make? Councillor Jack?
Yes, if I may, through the CAO, the public works man. These are all numbers that we talked about at the very beginning, right? And it's all still good. You can get done what you have to.
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Mayor.
I have some stuff that I want to know.
You can go right ahead.
I'm just gonna put it out here for conversation to you guys. as we know, things are moving ahead in the wastewater project. And I have seen what's happening in this office in the last couple of weeks here. There's been an RFP put out, a request for proposal put out for the treatment plant. I think that this office is going to be completely bombarded by that. And I don't think, even though I have Public Works, confidence in Public Works, absolutely, I agree that he thinks he can, but he thinks he can in status quo and not with all this new stuff coming. So I'd like to move a couple of these things out to 2026. Some things like that will rely on the Parks Commission. So my ask to council is on the second page of the, on the back of the first page at the top, there is a municipal dock seating area with a shelter and a fish cleaning station. I'm pretty sure that we can move that out to 2026, and that would be my recommendation. I think that there's a bunch of stuff going to happen at the foreshore this year. Anyways, the feasibility with all the, Parks Commission's gonna, or the Parks Committee is gonna comment on that. I think there are other parks things that could be getting done first and maybe take priority. I don't know what the committee is gonna say, but something like the cenotaph might be something that, could be, a really a win, a short term that. So that would be my suggestion, is that we move those two projects. So it's only $55,000. I know that we want to keep moving forward, but I think the time constraint on this village is going to be max this year with that wastewater treatment. So that would be my suggestion, is just to move that out to 2026. I think that we have seating at the top of the airplane dock. They shouldn't be using the airplane dock to clean their fish anyways.
No.
There is fish cleaning stations at the harbor, and the commercial people use their own.
Yeah.
What say you? Is that okay?
I like that. And what happens if we get another diesel spill? There'd be no fish coming in anyway.
All right, so that would be my suggestion then, is to, and do you want to do this by motion? I'm going to make a motion that we move items from department village properties. That's municipal dock seating areas with shelter on top of dock and fish cleaning station out to 2026 to give at least a little bit of breathing room to Public Works.
A second.
So that's seconded by Councillor Deck. I think that was the only one I had. Oh, there was one other one, but it's in a different department. So I'm going to call it all in favor on that one, just so we do it department by department.
Right.
All in favor, none opposed, that's carried. There's also an $11,000 SCADA system. The reason I'm giggling is not because this is not a major issue, but I do know we've done a lot of research in it, and because of what's going to go on with the wastewater, I think that any changes we make to our system have to account for that new system coming online. So is this the right time to do that? Through to the CAO.
Thank you, Mayor Colburn. I'll defer my final decision to our public works foreman. However, my opinion is that our SCADA systems should all align, whether it be for water, wastewater, and any of our other utilities. So I think we have an opportunity with the wastewater treatment plant coming in to align the system and get one that works for everything, so that Public Works Department's not having to transfer between two different systems.
So you're saying that you would think that we would use that $11,000 this year, right?
If we need to buy into what Hadasat is paying for.
I'm just looking for things to shove to 2026 so that and I'm thinking if those things can coincide, then that would be great, but that RFP is out, so that would be a this year bill, right?
That's correct. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we may, you know, this is not something that's been discussed with the engineers. So this is something that, we'll have to come back to council with.
And those are really the only two things that I saw. I mean, there's lots of fire projects on here. Just. Through to the CAO.
Thank you. In speaking with the protective services manager out of Strathcona, several of these asked for the fire department. He's looking for grant funding to be able to cover them, as well as the management of the department.
So then if that's the case, then will we come back and amend this? So there's like the $12,000 for the electrical surplus or upgrade comes from the surplus. That's gonna be an us.
Yes.
These other ones, the grant to be determined, donation or grant for the SCBA. Yeah, they really can't be moved. We really went lean on 2025 anyways. I just see there's so many things that are outstanding from 2024. That first column is still quite robust. Right? That very first column, we've got lift stations and ramps out in front of our building. And, you know, so these are all leftovers from last year. So that's all I was trying to do. I think I'm okay with just moving that one and giving just one less thing for Public Works to be. I don't know if there's any other suggestions from Public Works about things that can, I know the department is robust and they have a lot of really good committed people in it. And I'm sure they know that they can, but I'm just trying to alleviate a little bit of pressure here.
I think that motion will help.
Okay, so did I call the first one that?
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, does that make the ladies on the call happy? The fantastic females who are our finance department? You have enough to work with there with that resolution?
Yes, that makes us very happy, Mayor. Thank you. Thank you for your consideration too of Public Works and the workload. That's great to hear.
Absolutely. Anything we can help to you, you guys just find what we can help you with and then bring it forward to council and we'll have a look at that as well.
A second screen for Claudia.
Yeah. Perfect. So,
Can I ask a question?
Councillor Copeland.
Is it too late to put stuff down? They're talking about since the recent fire. I think there should be some medical training approved by the fire department for post.
I actually think that that's coming as well through one of our grants. I don't know if can you speak to that?
Yes, thank you. Through our Indigenous engagement, Kelsey Robinson is getting certified as a trainer. And so he's going to come in and provide training to the fire department as well as the village office staff. We did some emergency training last year, both fire department and office staff, and he's going to increase that for 2025.
Does that include the post emergency, like critical incident debriefing?
That is something that we've actually already have a service through, and we've made connections through Kathy Down, who's our new emergency preparedness coordinator, brought in a CISM team, critical incident stress management team following this fire.
Oh, it was done.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and then so I think that there's added things, but I just remember seeing it in a grant somewhere that it was already covered off. So as much as, yeah, that's fantastic. I don't think we need to add it.
Okay.
It's already happening through the department.
Yeah, superb. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's good to hear
Makes you look good.
that it's good to hear that the village office is piggybacking on those. So thank you to the staff for taking that time out to make sure that everyone is speaking the same language on the same page and can support our constituents for sure. Yeah, appreciate it. Okay, That's that, folks. There's no bylaws or business or in camera. There's no addendum to this one, so I would take a adjournment motion.
I move we adjourn.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? That is carried as well. Thank you so much for being on, Claudia and Mrs. Frost and Mrs. Janice.